don't want to participate, that's fine. Maybe we'll just ask that people sit or stand quietly. It'll be just about 10 minutes. Did you want to introduce yourself?
Start or first of all, thank you everybody so much for being here for the closing reception. We're going to do a little curator artist walkthrough immediately after. I talked to Kate Savage is also in the exhibition in the back room. She has the piece where I'm dressed up like Baroness Elsa von Freytag-Lorenhagen, if you know who that is. And she also does mindfulness meditation and teaches classes, and so we talked about it. We thought it would be a perfect kind of performative way to end the exhibition it was just kind of a perfect example of what the show is about too. And so we thought just kind of a short, it's like 5 or 10 minute meditation. Yeah, I don't know if you want to explain any more. Or
yeah, I'll just say another word too. So in addition to being an artist, as Kristine mentioned, I'm also a mindfulness meditation teacher. I was looking up the definition of the word perceive, and one of the definitions in the college dictionary is awareness. And awareness is what mindfulness meditation is all about. And since we all have a body, and this show is about body awareness and body image, I thought that would be a good place to start. So feel free to sit on the floor if you like. You can also do this as a standing meditation. So whatever is comfortable for you. And I'll just lead you through a little bit of guidance for the meditation. So some things to kind of direct you or give you some suggestions for how to connect to the meditation practice. And I just wanted to say a word too that my idea for this meditation was also that as a way to connect to our individual bodies from the inside out. When we hear the word perceive, we think of it often being from the outside in, being about the visual, but perceive really means connecting to your awareness with your senses. So, yeah, and I guess I also was thinking about the fact that I don't think there's an adult human being alive who hasn't at some point felt some kind of shame or stigma or judgment about their own bodies. Am I right out there? Yeah. Yes. So it doesn't matter, if you're male or female, old or young, fat or thin, we all carry so much judgment, especially from the outside in. If you are in a marginalized group, or you have, you're a person of color, or you're, not in the normative gender, stereo, or whatever, standards of beauty, or narrow ideas that are given to us by society about gender and things like that, you might have even more baggage around that. So we all internalize these messages as well. So the meditation is an opportunity to see if we can shed even a little bit of that and just connect with our direct experience of the body in the moment. So, and to do this, you don't need to close your eyes. You may if you want to. If you're standing, it's a little harder to close your eyes because you might feel lost. First thing we want to do is just find a comfortable sitting posture or standing posture, whatever feels comfortable to you, where you can feel relatively upright and awake, but also relaxed. So even standing, if we just take a moment to connect with the soles of our feet, notice how we connect to the floor. If you're sitting, you might feel that connection of the feedback of the floor through the soles of your feet. You might feel it more in your seat on the floor. So just finding those points of connection, and then noticing how the body is supported by gravity. Gravity is a helpful feedback tool that lets us know that we are in the body, that we have a body. Maybe feeling the weight and substance of your body. Taking a moment to check in. And I'm going to ring the bell. If you don't like to just use your awareness to listen to the sound of the bell until it disappears, that gives your mind a little something to do. feels available to you, you could offer yourself 2 or 3 slightly deeper, longer breaths at your own pace, just filling your lungs in a way that feels replenishing to you. And on the exhale, maybe allowing your shoulders to drop even just a tiny bit more. And at your own pace, doing this a couple more times. And we don't have a perfect world, so there's distractions and there's sounds. And that's just fine. And we may have distractions in our own minds or our own thinking. And we can just notice all of that. And then come back to the body. Finding, again, these points of contact of the feet or seat on the floor. And maybe, just maybe, we can get a sense of coming home to the body. And even if this idea is just aspirational for you at this point, that's okay. Just feeling that maybe I can find a sense of safety and refuge in the body as I come back to this very moment. Allowing the thoughts and judgments just to fade away into the background a little bit. I think it's helpful for you to stay with the breath, breathing in and breathing out. Just noticing the felt sense of the breath in its natural rhythm. I invite you to just put your attention on your breath. But for some of us, that's not available or it's too difficult. So then finding a safe and easy place in the body to connect the attention. Again, perhaps the feet on the floor or the seat on the floor. Giving yourself this pause. This little respite in the busyness of your day, just to check in with yourself. And when your mind gets distracted or wanders off into the past or the future, when you notice that you've wandered, that's mindfulness that notices. And so it's a moment of waking up. And when you wake up to notice that you've wandered in your thinking, you can just come back to the body again. Come home to this moment, come home to the body. It doesn't matter how many times the mind wanders, we can always return and start again. For the last few moments of this practice, I invite you to try on some phrases that is an ancient practice that just offers a sort of kindness or friendliness to the body. And you can use your own phrases or change them. And again, these can be just aspirational at this point, just something you would intend for your relationship with your body. So perhaps something like, may I befriend my body just as it is today. Or I wish to meet my body as a friend. Just repeating that in your own mind, seeing how that fits for you. phrase might be, may I accept my limitations with ease. Just repeating that in your own mind, seeing how that fits for you. Finally, one more, maybe something like, may I find refuge and safety in the home of my body. And these are just wholesome wishes that we wish ourselves. Seeing how it feels to have that intention. And another minute, I'll ring the bell 3 times to signal the end of our practice today. Thank you for your practice.
Thank you very much. Now that we're all asleep. We're not finished. We're not quite finished. We're doing a quick, not a quick, but we're doing, an artist walkthrough where I'm going to talk a little bit about the exhibition, how I curated it, and then we have 4 artists here that we're going to talk to about their work, about our collaboration together. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. The first artist that today who we're going to talk with Amanda Mears, who's around here somewhere. Okay. And then Monica Sandoval, who is, her work's over here. Ryan Henisey, whose work is in the next room. And then Kate, we're going back to her, and her work's in the back room. The show's going to travel to 6 other locations after this, and hopefully more. In each place, I'm going to have different artists talk. So that means you have to go to those events too. Just a little bit about the show and the project, and most everybody knows what the show's about. I invited 60 artists to paint, draw, photograph, sculpt, 3D print, and videotape me nude. And it's all about perception, all about body image, all about self-worth validation, the idea of not being afraid to be who you are. And I still am. I mean, it's definitely a work in process. People ask me if I've changed throughout the whole thing, and I have a little bit, and actually it's interesting, not so much with my body image, but in my confidence of being whole, if that makes sense. Because of the whole package, because of the artists that I worked with, because of, Mika taking a chance on me, because of, so much. So it's much more than the body, and I think that's the biggest message here, is that it is much more than our physical appearance, and that's something we all need to remember. A little bit about the curation. I honestly, I got the images in over, between August of 2019 and I think September, so over 2 months. The artist sent me the images of their work with the dimensions for the catalog, because I wanted the catalog done by October. So I knew the sizes of the work, but then when we installed and all the work came in, I was like, wait, that's bigger, or that's smaller than I thought it was going to be. And so I had the floor plan ahead of time, and I placed the work according to the floor plan. And then I met with Danny, who most of you know. She has the 3 pieces on this back wall, the 3 photographs. And we moved stuff around, and we're like, let's kind of theme the rooms. Let's make them, more cohesive. And I already had them laid out, but then it made sense. Like once we started moving things around, like we made this room back here more of the fun room, where, it was like more cheerful, more joyful. And even this area, it's like doing this, or and the colors are brighter. The back room is the more contemplative room, so you can see where I'm a little more subdued. It's also where more of the Baroque type paintings are. I think the more historic room maybe. The room in the middle is the photographic room, so there's photo and video. And it just kind of worked out. Once the show was laid, it fit. I mean, it was a team effort. When I was here, I had like Ellen Friedlander and Susan and Emily, and I mean, it was like all of us were working together and saying, well, what about this, or what about that? And I mean, that's the whole collaborative process of the exhibition. I'm the artist of it, I'm the curator and the producer, but it takes a village. Like I said in the back of my book, all of this, it took a village to put together, and that's what this whole project is about too. I think, and then this room is kind of like a conglomeration of all of the, everything. Like there's contemplative, there's the power stance, which I hope everybody tries. And then like this corner here, we'll talk to Monica in a few minutes. I mean, like putting Geneva's work with Monica's, it was perfect. And then with Anna's on the end, it just, like everything, it clicked. So I could not be happier with the way the show is laid out. When it travels, it's going to be in some smaller locations. And so it'll be really interesting to see how it's shown there. I think it's going to be salon style in some cases, but I think that's going to make a different and maybe an even bigger impact. So it'll be really cool to see that in the documentation of how that progresses or how that changes. But I mean, for the first showing, and again, I'm honored that Mika and Cal State LA, like everybody, had faith in this and took a chance, and and that you all are here. I mean, I couldn't thank you enough. The support and love that I've had throughout this last month especially has been amazing. So thank you very much. And Amanda, do you want to come on up and let's see if we can just get in front of this piece for a second. So Amanda, Amanda is officially the first person that was at the beginning of the project. If you have the catalog or who have seen the catalog, and actually really fast before I forget, a lot of the artists are here today. Wearing their red, if they have them, their red name tags. And if you bought a catalog and brought it, see the artists and get signatures. That's what they're here for, and I know a lot of the artists need signatures. So find each other and get your catalog signed. I also have my catalog at the front there. I would love for everybody to sign it as if it was a yearbook. I'd love your comments, I'd love even just a signature. I mean, that's what it's about too. It's part of that village and community. So, please stop by and sign it. But find the artist and, sign, and even get their signatures if you have their catalog. So I think you had invited me to be part of your project that you were working on. And I don't remember, I think I made up a story, which probably isn't true. What made you invite me to be part of your project?
Okay, so I'm currently in graduate school and I'm focusing on painting, but I always used to draw and I missed it a lot, and I've always drawn figures about this size and this way. And I'm particularly interested in people who are not perfect. So lived-in bodies, older bodies, perfect, I should say, in inverted commas. And when I was learning life drawing, we always used to get these models who were sort of 20-somethings, whatever, and they're so boring to draw. And I had seen Kristine's work when, was it through a shower curtain or something? Or
Like a series,
yes.
bathroom door.
Really beautiful work, and I followed Kristine's work for a while, but I really enjoyed her work, and I thought, I wonder if she'd let me draw her. So it was one of those random things you think, gosh, this is embarrassing, I'm just going to say no, whatever. So I emailed her, so I guess the moral is always reach out. But I emailed her and said, would you like to come and can I draw you naked? And it's hard to get people to do that because obviously I'm exploratory, perhaps not flattering traditionally. But she said yes, and it was fantastic. So we started to work together, and I normally draw from life, so that means standing for about 5 hours in 20-minute sections. But when you draw people with different body types, you can't always do that. And so Kristine and I sort of oscillated between short sessions and photographs, and we sort of managed it like that. And I also usually would have people just stand, because you're standing for 5 hours, you tend to settle into your body in a way that really speaks about your body, because you just settle into it. And so I love that, the sort of weight, the flow, the expression. It becomes very meditative, actually. So with Kristine, I said, well, pick the pose. Because she's an artist, it was a kind of collaboration rather than me just drawing her. So she picked this fabulous power pose, which at the time I thought, I don't normally draw something like that. It's much more internal, really. But what I liked about this was it was a performance, and it was so interesting that later on you called this whole thing a performance, because I remember thinking the difference between this and my other drawings is that this is a performance. She has presented herself in this way, and it was super interesting. And so we did the drawing, and we were talking, and I really got to know Kristine. It was lovely. And if someone's standing around naked in your studio, you get to talk to them. It's just one of the things I love. It's like there's that real engagement with another human. It's a very profound way of looking and being looked at, and you quickly forget you're naked or whatever. Did you quickly forget you're naked, or did you?
I think so.
Yeah, it sort of becomes like a whatever, right? And it took quite a long time, but when we finally finished it, you'd seen it in progress, but there it was, kind of finished, and Kristine came around and she said, wow, I look beautiful. And I really still makes me want to cry, actually, because it was just fantastic. You don't remember that? It was like you just looked at it and you were just like, wow, because I think you haven't, what I imagined, maybe this is my imagination, was that maybe you had seen what I had seen, which was this beautiful lived-in piece of humanity, this body that has been through things and moved through the world, and that's what I see, and that's why I like to draw bodies, and I was so happy about that. It made me really happy. So when this whole thing happened, I guess we did talk, didn't we, about it?
No, I think, during our conversations, it came up about body image and perception and self-worth, and I think we came up with the idea then, basically.
I guess.
And we met, it was over 3 or 4 months, because I remember things would come up, and it would be 2 hours at a time.
Yeah.
And so, I know I came up with the idea while I was posing. So
this is such a wonderful, and to see this now, the whole thing is amazing, but it made me think a lot about things. I am a thin person, I've always been a thin person, but I'm at that age when we're starting to get a little older, you're starting to become invisible. It's very interesting to start really thinking about your relationship with your outside self and your inside self, and I think there's a lot of, it's hugely valuable what you're doing, and I think all of us looking at bodies and the way we are in this show it's really important. It's for me, these are an encounter. They take such a long time, and for this to come out of an encounter it's fantastic. Really, it's really thrilling. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Amanda?
Yeah.
So I imagine you have many drawings of Kristine.
No.
Okay, I thought you
this
said
one.
you met over several months.
Oh yeah, no, this
or 2
took a long time. Normally this would take about 5 hours if I had a model would do 20 minutes all day. But also because we were chatting a lot, so it did take a long time. And we had kind of tea breaks and chocolate breaks and things like that. And also I'm in school, so I'm a bit deranged, so I'm not working quite as smoothly as I would normally. but yeah.
But the process was, so you did draw it out with pencil.
So I marked out the basic proportions and with just a very light pencil, and then the actual drawing is done in Conte. And then I normally
erase that.
Can't erase it. So it's a very meditative process, actually. It really is, and that's what I like about it. It's there. You know, you deal with it. When I'm very interested in ephemera and presence, and so I think it sort of speaks to all of that. But a flow normally occurs. I normally have a much lighter touch, but because this pose was really strong and Kristine's energy is really strong, I used much stronger marks. I hit it harder than I would, and it's. I mean, these are a nightmare to photograph, but this might be a little easier because it's darker marks. But yeah, these are a nightmare to represent. But there's all the articulation. I was very intrigued by her knees. She has really awesome knees. And so you're always making very personal comments about knees, but it was funny because I would speak around because you have awesome knees, and she'd say, oh, they really hurt. Or, and then there was this sort of thing, she didn't like her knees. I was like, oh, I think your knees are really great. And we had quite a few conversations like that about sort of parts of Kristine that I thought was super interesting and expressive, and she was like, I am done with this part. It's not doing what it should do for me. So it was a great, yeah, I've often wanted to do these and have a sort of, like an accompanying record of the conversation. Because
I wish we did.
Yeah, I wish we did, but it was really, I don't know, but it's such a, these feel so intimate in the process, and so I don't know if it feels intimate in the observation.
It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
What's interesting is you're talking about the permanence of it and how you created it, and then you have these spots that are empty that you've chosen not to draw in. So I'd love for you to talk about that flow and the ease of the permanence in the parts of the bodies that you're not showing.
That's a great
The
question.
edges.
Yes, that's a great question. This one is more solid than I usually do. Actually, sometimes I literally leave out like everything except the core or something. It really depends on the pose and the sitter. But this one, because it was powerful, I probably left more in. But I like that feeling. I'm really obsessed with paper, like paper, and the paper has a real presence in its own way. And I really like it to feel like somebody's both emerging and disappearing at the same time. Because we're all just made up of bits of floating atoms, right? So there isn't much permanence about us, except maybe in our minds. And there really isn't much heaviness about us either. And I think that I suppose for me, maybe that's part of the sort of spiritual aspect, both as doing the drawing and like how much do you need to feel a person and how little do you need? And that's a really interesting debate that happens while I'm drawing. I hope that answers your question.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Amanda.
you.
Monica. Let's look at Monica's work over here. Monica's are these two, if you can see them. So Monica and I both went to Cal State Northridge. When did you graduate?
2013?
Okay. So I don't think we overlapped, did we? Yeah, because I graduated in 2010.
Yeah.
But we were friends on Facebook and I think Instagram, and I've followed her and I've loved her work, which is, about identity, about the body, and she did this amazing piece that I fell in love with using her own body. And so when I first started the project, I wanted to also work with artists whose focus is about their body, or the body in particular. And so I thought Monica would be perfect for the project. She came over, we had, another intense conversation about body image and about all of it. And, I think, did you know what you were going to do from the beginning?
Sort of. Actually, I gotta tell you, I was super nervous starting this project because usually in my own work, I use myself as a model, so I have the freedom to, cut off limbs or, take off certain parts. And, so I remember you asking me if I want to be part of this project, and I think I emailed you saying, you sure? Like, is it okay if I actually do what because I was in this process of already doing pieces like this with my own work, where I've either take one thing out or add more. More like kind of creating almost like these weird jigsaw pieces where there's a missing piece, but you don't quite know for sure what it is, or the opposite, what's actually missing. But once you're like, you have the freedom, you can do whatever you want, I was like, okay. So that's what with the process of it alone, like I remember bringing my camera with me. And I remember told you, like, I want to do something lo-fi, I don't want to do something totally just staged, I just want to take photographs and then make a collage of it. And that's important because we're already so saturated with so much imagery of things that are photoshopped and just looking perfect that I wanted something to look kind of grainy. So I ended up using like iPhone images to make this. But and with this I was thinking about how generally there's always something about our own bodies, regardless of size. There's something that we always want to change. We're going to either actually substitute or even go as far as doing, surgery to actually, alter and move and change and all that. So I wanted to focus on certain things that that I find beautiful, even if they're just focused parts and there's still little pieces missing. Because I don't know, I like things that are like imperfect. I like things that show off certain angles of our body that are not, technically considered flattering. But I don't know, I feel like those things are the most beautiful. So yeah. But the whole process with you was amazing. I remember our conversation. We just, to be quite honest, like I don't have a lot of friends who look like me. So and that are artists. So I immediately connected with you, and it was the first time ever that I could show a piece of art to someone, and they got it. I didn't have to go to this whole spiel of like, so back in the day I was bullied, blah 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 blah. Like, even though that thing is important, it's not always something I want to talk about for people to enter my work and understand it.
Yeah.
So you just immediately were like, okay, that's what your work's about, that's what you're into. Let's get naked. Just kidding. So,
I know we had also talked about, and we didn't do it here, but doing some type of consciousness raising or a group. I mentioned it with Leslie Leibowitz when we talked last week. And we still have to do that. I think it's important, to have these conversations, for about, whether it's body image, whether it's identity. I mean, especially the world that we live in, we need to have these conversations. And, like, they don't have them anymore, just where we get together and talk about these things. And so it's something, maybe, I don't know, I don't want to add anything to my plate. But, maybe having meetups where we talk about it. Sure. Yeah, definitely.
That'd be great.
We need to, for sure.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. Are there any questions for Monica?
Well, I guess I would.
Yeah.
The process, was it all digital? I mean,
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's digital collage.
So, what is the process?
Like, did you make photographs of her and then play with them?
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's just other images of flowers that I have, and then I just kind of manipulate it so that it fits together perfectly.
And she brought a green sheet that I wore, so kind of like a green screen. So she was able to, digitally manipulate the flowers within me and on top of me. And
right, and it made it easier for me to alter like exactly what I wanted to cut out and what to add.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they came out beautifully.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What you want to say? I didn't get it.
Oh, it's Sandoval. So
Sandoval.
Yeah.
Monica,
Thank you so much, Monica. Thank you. the artists to participate, most of the time they actually came to my space at the brewery and shot photos of me. Some like Nancy K. Turner actually drew me in while she was there, and Anna Stepp also painted me there while she brought her paints and everything. Doggy Wallace, who has the little piece, thank you. So Doggy Wallace, who has the little piece with the paint drips on me, she came over to my place and we had plastic out and we poured tempura on me. And Ryan was going to come and shoot me, so I asked, I said, hey, can you come and help us? So he was there when Doggy was there, and just like pouring paint and dripping paint. And then I saw this and I'm like, it was like perfect. It was like the perfect addition or the perfect complement, and I don't know if this was your original intention, like with the drips and I mean, because, you know, of course that is what my paintings are like.
Yeah, no, I definitely, so a huge part of my process is the mythology, right? And for me, mythology is both classic mythology and personal familial mythology. And Kristine and I have known each other for a few years. It's not like we hang out super socially, but we see each other, know about each other. And I'm familiar with her own artwork and the art that she's been making in her art story. So I really wanted to have pieces of that. So yes, it really was my intention to have you on a background of drips, even before Doggy. And then that made it even better.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was always the intention to kind of really like the drips, the pink hair, the cakes. There were all elements that I wanted to reflect your personal story, right? Things that harkened back to you. Even the street scene in LA, I was like, gotta get in the street scene.
Yeah.
All of it.
And then you based it on like what was the
yeah, so the posing for all of my art that's in this style, I really like to mix the classical poses that you'll see typically in two-dimensional Egyptian or Greek fresco relief kind of things. But I like to mix those poses with kind of a contemporary body structure, right? And so we talked about the different Venuses. I came in with a bunch of like, you know, there's this pose, there's this pose, there's this pose. There's like a bunch of like, you know, holding your body poses, and none of them felt right to us, and we both acknowledged they didn't feel right. So then we started playing with your own personal poses, and we landed on her, yeah, like, what are you gonna do? And I love it because it really does give you this wonderful, nice, two-dimensional flat aspect that you would expect from an Egyptian wall drawing or from a Greek carving, right? And so the echo of that, but also, again, tying into your own, like, we all see her doing this from, like, anytime, yes, it was that one and this one that I have pictures of. And then I found it really funny in the process because, you know, we heard earlier that you were spending hours over many days, and I was like, yeah, let's take 2 shots with my iPhone and I'm good.
Some of them were that simple.
Yeah,
absolutely. It was just, it worked, it clicked. And I mean, even like the colors of this, I mean, it's also a very joyful, happy piece. And it, like when we met with Doggy, and I mean, it was one of the funnest.
The bicycle
yes,
was
oh my
the best
gosh.
part.
There was like 1 or 2 shots in the catalog in the back that there were like the B-sides.
Yes.
And you know, we were just like playing, and it was so much fun.
It was a lot of fun.
You know,
I felt bad for you with all the paint in your eye, and then at some point some got in her mouth, and I was just like, that does not taste good. I know.
They were like, and then they were following me to the bathroom, like cleaning up all
the floor.
It was hilarious. When I invited you to be part of the project, what made you say yes?
I just respect you and the projects that you do. I think you and I are very similar in our, like, let's get it.
Yeah.
Just attack Los Angeles until I get what I want out of it. I like
I like
that,
actually.
right? And so that's a big part of it. But also, I really love the whole concept of spinning the idea of the body on its head. Mythology and queer theory are at the center of all of my work, and I would argue that this show is a queer-based show. Not necessarily, and by that I don't mean that you have to be a queer person in order to make queer art, in order to enter into queer theory. What I'm saying is that by doing anything that is counter to the status quo, counter to what is always seen, you are creating something that is queer. And for me, that was the really big thing that made this such a joy and such an honor to be a part of, is it not only reinforces my own ideas about what queer theory and queer art are today, right, 20 years after really their genesis, but that the definition of queerness can include people with bodies of different shapes and sizes that aren't necessarily gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or whatever. And I think that for me, that's the big draw and the excitement in being included with everybody. Queer bodies.
Yeah. Are there any questions for Ryan?
Are you an LA artist? I mean,
Yeah.
were you originally from LA?
Yeah, I was born in I was born in North Hollywood, but grew up in Lancaster, Palmdale area. So I'm a native Southern Californian.
The reason I asked is say that we represent.
Yes.
That's what I want. What is it about, like, you're at the brewery, which is in the center, like,
Yeah, so
LA.
I'm a West Hollywood-based artist, and it's a little bit more of like an art desert in kind of the mid-city areas. I think downtown has a really robust art culture, and then Santa Monica has a really robust art culture. And in between is a little dry. But you know, stop by Tag Gallery. I'm just going to shamelessly plug myself because we're trying to mix it up. But I think, and Kristine said this really well on the Miss Art World podcast, that for an artist in Los Angeles, the thing that's really important is to understand that in order to be successful, you have to be a little bit of an entrepreneur yourself. And the entrepreneurial artist, the artist who treats their art as a business, and whether that means sales or whether that means you have a museum goal or whatever your goal is, that can be different, right? But treating it with the respect that you would treat a business is kind of the LA MO. And that's really the successful artists that you see in Los Angeles are the artists that are doing a lot of the legwork themselves, that are really grassroots, and run the whole show from the top to the bottom, right? Like,
That is different from New York?
yeah. Yeah.
What is it?
New York tends to be a little bit more representational, so you have established galleries that are representing the artists, and it's a little bit more of a set kind of program that you follow in order to get noticed and to be seen. Whereas in LA, you can, there's nothing wrong with creating a show, putting on a show, finding venues for the show, whether that's a venue that's been granted to you, like this show here, or it's something that you're renting on your own. All of those are acceptable in the LA market.
That's because of the space.
Yeah.
And you know, if you haven't listened, it's Miss Art World podcast.
Good.
I think you were first, and then I did mine, and I beat him by a few minutes.
Yeah, we have the longest episode.
Yeah.
Give yourself a couple days to listen.
But Ryan especially talks about the art world in general, and being a part of the LA art world too. And you know, definitely I highly recommend listening to it. Any other questions for Ryan? Did you have a question? I saw your hand. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm just curious about, you said mythology, so who do you read or follow or interest in?
Mythology's been a lifelong thing for me. But I'm not going to remember her name now, but I've been obsessed with the Song of Achilles and Circe. Both wonderful books. Go read them. Go download them from the library. Delicious retellings. Nice modern bend so Song of Achilles is told from Patroclus' point of view, and Circe is told from Circe's point of view, and they're just really great fictional retellings. And then mythology, everything I could get my hands on. I literally have a Time Life set that's, like literally the entire set. It took me a decade to cut them all down. I have them all. I have all of the Amber Lang rainbow fairy tale books. And those are like, they're not in print anymore. You can still find them. They're still pretty common. But they are global stories collected over a series of, I think it's 10 or 12 books. Each one's a different color, so there's the red fairy tale book, the blue fairy tale book, etc., etc. And they're just mixed, and it's attributed to Andrew Lang, but it was actually his wife collected them and wrote all of them and put his name on it.
Wow. That's a whole other story.
Whole other story. But yeah, those are recent recommendations.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Let's head to the back room and we will talk with Kate. I know.
Don't worry, I won't make you do another meditation.
Actually, I won't. So we started with Kate and we'll end with Kate. Oh gosh, I don't even, so working together, what made you decide on Baroness Frida Baroness Elsa von Freytag Orientated?
So I was one of the artists who actually reached out to Kristine because she was posting some of the early pieces that she was doing for this project. She was posting them on Facebook.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and I reached out to her because basically I was doing this series called Ageless that was about kind of perceptions of beauty, historical perceptions of beauty, personal history, as well as like, different periods of history. And I had been making these headdresses for a while that were kind of nods to different periods of history and different cultures, but doing a different twist on them. So they were not literal, like, remaking of certain headdresses, but kind of looking at the forms of certain headdresses from different historical periods. And a lot of them were headdresses that were worn by women and had something to do with their status as queens or as noble women or things like that. So there's a class aspect to it. But anyway, they also had to do with different ideas of beauty and status and power. And so when I reached out to Kristine and stepping on my work, she asked to see my work. I sent you a link to the website, and then you were like, oh yeah, that seems to fit. And so I don't know if you remember that part, but then.
I mean, I knew about your work before.
Yeah, you know,
I definitely seen it. Yeah.
So then we made a date, and I went out to her studio. I did some sketches, some drawings, and took some photographs. And I brought a whole bunch of different headdresses. And this is the way I like to work too, because like Kristine, I like to work and think of it as a collaboration with the models. It's not just me saying, hey, wear this, I did kind of have this piece in mind. I had already made this mirror headdress, but because it had mirrors on it, it was very much about perception, and it's reflecting back to the viewer. I thought this would maybe be the one, but I wanted to see what Kristine came up with, so I brought a whole bunch of headdresses. We played dress up. Do you want to say anything else about that?
No, I mean, it was a lot of fun. And no, I think this was it. I think we had probably talked about the Baroness, and I don't know if you
brought it. Oh, you
yeah.
I think you had sent me something by email.
Yes.
So she told me about this artist, and actually I wrote it down because there's some, I did a little bit of research about her after, but when you showed me pictures in your studio, I think you had sent me some pictures beforehand, and it just really clicked. So I'll read you a little bit about what has been written about her. So again, her name was Baroness Elsa von Freytag Loringhoven. One of the things that has been attributed to her is the Armut urinal piece that was attributed to Duchamp, but some people think that she actually made it, right?
Or came up with the idea.
Or came up with the idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so not made it, but came up with the idea. So I was really fascinated by her. So some of the things that were written, this author John Higgs said she wore cakes as hats, spoons as earrings, black lipstick and postage stamps as makeup. She was regularly arrested and incarcerated for offenses such as petty theft or public nudity. At a time when societal restrictions on female appearance were only starting to soften, she would shave her head or dye her hair vermilion. When I first met Kristine, she wore that pink wig that's over there in the corner. Next time I saw you, you had a shaved head. So there's a reason that you were attracted to her, obviously. And then there's another story about the Baroness being hired by an artist named George Biddle. He invited her to his studio to model for him, and she came in a red trench coat, and he asked her to take off her coat so that she would model in the nude. Said she threw open her scarlet raincoat. Underneath she was nude, apart from a bra made from 2 tomato cans and green string, and a small bird cage housing a sorry-looking canary which hung around her neck. Her only other items of clothing were a large number of curtain rings recently stolen from a department store, and a hat which was decorated with carrots, beets, and other vegetables. Poor George Biddle, the author writes, there he was, thinking he was the artist and that the woman in front of him was his model. With one quick reveal, the Baroness announced that she was the artist and he simply the audience. That's great. I think that's just yeah. So Kristine is the artist, and we all get to be part of her show, and I've been honored to be a part of it. So thank you for that.
It's been interesting. Part of the conversation has been about authorship and about kind of subverting the idea of the artist model, the artist muse, because I'm taking control, where in the past, it's been, where the male artist hires the female model who, in the past, like 100 years ago, was a prostitute, or, a dancer.
Or if she wasn't, she was viewed as a prostitute.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so by doing this, there's so many layers, so many levels to this project, so many conversations to still be had, but that's a part of where I am taking control, I'm taking the power, and it's definitely a feminist conversation, in that regard. And I mean, using examples like the Baroness, who I've been inspired by for so long. It was perfect, and with Kate and with many of the artists here, the poses, not the set designs, but the backgrounds, the subject matter, they came out of these conversations, whether it was about art history or whether it was about who my favorite artist is. Botticelli is one of my favorite artists, or, things like that. And so, and there's a reason for that and why it keeps coming up. And so I think, these conversations will continue to go on. And I still learn every day. I see the art or hear from people or just talk about it. I still learn and realize what this project is about. I started with one thing, but it's much more than that, and that's the exciting part about it too.
Yeah, it could just keep expanding, I think. It'd be interesting to include more, more people, more artists, more subject matter. Well, maybe more, I don't know, other subjects.
We have 60.
You go.
Actually, that's one thing that people have asked me if I'm going to continue. And while I was doing the project, I thought I would, and I have a list of 30 other artists who have either contacted me or whose work I've seen, who, potentially, but I don't think it would mean the same thing, and, the conversation would be different, and I think it has to stop here. I think this has to speak for itself, and it does. I think it would be a different conversation if I continued it on. So, and I'm starting as a personal trainer, so my body may change.
Our bodies do change. They do not stay the same.
I know. Are there any other questions? Anything? Yes,
Kristine, have you ever thought about when somebody's making these images of you, did you ever want to make the image back and do something about them?
No. it's not really what I do. I've never been one to represent somebody else. In fact, people have asked me about that, like, I don't remember what it was, but why I didn't use male models or like talk about like men, or because it's personal. It's all about me and like what I've been going through with my eating disorder, with body image, with, you know, just growing up overweight, all of that. So, but I'm also not a representational artist, you know, in that regard. You know, conceptually maybe a whole other thing, but yeah, that would be even more work. But thank you for asking. Yeah.
I'm sure you've had many revelations over the course of this project. Do you have a particular revelation now in hindsight that is kind of the core of what you've experienced?
About the project in general, or about?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
You know, what has the project really stimulated? Has there been a real dramatic shift about something specific?
I mean, not about my body at all. I still, I've gained weight since a lot of these. But I kind of said at the beginning, and even just this last month, and I've always been about community. And, you know, like I said, it takes a village. But even more so, like this last month, you know, talking with the artists who were part of the project, or, you know, friends, or, you know, going to openings, and also realizing how far-reaching the idea of this project is. I was talking with a friend of mine, Emily, who's my bookkeeper, and she's in the show. She said she lives up in Santa Rosa, and she said she was having this whole other conversation with a couple other friends about it, and they had seen the catalog. And like, so the conversations are like even beyond what I had imagined. And I think that's what I hope. And, you know, because it is about, you know, being brave. It's about being yourself. It's about authenticity. And so, you know, I think I've always been that way, so that wasn't a revelation, but maybe just how far-reaching it is, or how far-reaching it may be. And just, you know, that our community is much bigger than we think. You know, in our village is much bigger than we think. And just the support and love out there that you don't realize you have has been amazing. So, yeah. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I bought the book when you first started to sell it, because for me it was about supporting you to support others, not shaming themselves about body issues, which I think is the most important thing. But I'm very curious, after looking at this magnificent group of personal, diverse interpretations. This is a really kind of cliché question, but I'm just curious if you have a favorite. Maybe you don't want to say.
We're all perfect.
I know. Whether you feel, I know, I'm sorry. I couldn't guess. Whether you feel like more drawn to the three-dimensional or the two-dimensional for various other reasons.
You know, I've been asked that a few times. It's my favorite. I mean, they all are for very different reasons. And it also kind of, like somebody had mentioned this to me also, it kind of depends on my mood. I mean, because some of them are like about being powerful. Some of them are more contemplative, or some of them are, you know, a little more sexy, or so it kind of depends on how I'm feeling.
I mean, good answer.
Yeah. Good, because, you know, Betsy is my favorite. No, I mean, every artist that I worked with went far beyond what I could have imagined. I mean, and I so appreciate the time, the money, you know, everything, the hard work that they put into it. I mean, I couldn't have imagined when I started the whole project how much they would have put into it. They did put into it. And, you know, like Debbie creating the big, you know, 7-foot sculpture in the back. I don't even know if she anticipated that, you know, or, you know, Catherine, you know, creating this image. Catherine actually went to my home in Lancaster, and my childhood home, and shot photos of the leaves from the tree that I grew up with. And so, you know, it's like things like that, you know, just, yeah. I mean, so the project is not just about the art, but it is about the love, which is huge. Yeah, Debbie.
Is there one image that's, or not one, but are there images that are difficult for you to look at?
That's a good question. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. No. No, I can look at them all pretty easily. Was there another question? Or John?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that all of these images were taken down for violating community standards. And I want to say thank you for creating community standards that we can really relate to and feel a part of. And that's very much what this show has been to me. Excuse me, F their community standards.
Yeah, I don't know how many times I was like removed from Facebook or Instagram, or that's why I have 2 accounts. If you see my accounts. Yeah, Marie.
This show, I love when I introduce the idea of photograph to people that are not from our community, from our real clique, quote unquote, or from the artwork. I love to see how people's wheels start. First is shock, then no really, then you start thinking. And this show really elevates the conversation. It's a very honest show, and there's a lot of love in it too, as I said it before. So I just enjoy seeing their like,
And you know, the show isn't just like about the art or me or my body, but you know, I mentioned at the very beginning, a lot of the artists here have their red lanyards, and it has their name with their work on it. Because, you know, it was also about supporting the artists, and you know, that's why we created the catalog early, so people could buy it. They brought it to the opening. It was so cool watching everybody go around, even today, you know, everybody going around and getting the signatures from the artists. And, you know, so it's been about community in that way too, and being able to support, you know, however I've been able to in that way too.
Yeah, I'll just add as one of the many artists I've just so enjoyed being part of this community, and you are an incredible community builder.
Yes, you are.
I know it's been said before, but you really should be commended for what you bring to Los Angeles and how you bring people together. And I've met so many of the artists in the shows, you know, so it's going to continue, which is great. It's been such a pleasure. It's been fun, you know, to meet people. And get to
I just want to echo that because the opportunity I've had, and I feel like I'm just starting, to meet artists that I would not, if it were not for this, have known, some of whom live close to me, some don't, and I really want to honor you and this for this opportunity. It's just been extraordinary. So, and this project, it's just, I'm so grateful.
If you don't know, Tanya is the sculpture maker of this one. So,
I'm just like, really extraordinary what you, all of it, all the depth, all of it.
I went to Tanya's home for a studio visit while she was working on the piece. And we sat down and we were drinking wine and having cheese, and I put my cell phone on and I was going to record our conversation. It was like set up as a stage. It was fantastic. Like a half-an-hour conversation, and I go to my cell phone and it wasn't on. It was like, really? Yeah. You know, the more wine we drank, the more, it was fantastic. And yeah, but yeah. That's,
you know, it is so interesting to hear the little stories that are connected with the process of each artist, with you, and also, I mean, but I never knew, I mean, this is gorgeous, you know, Catherine's piece, but who knew that it was really
about, going to Lancaster to your childhood tree.
Right,
mean,
I want to hear every
I
single.
would love to know.
Yeah.
I mean, most of us put a little blurb in the catalog, but that's only, that's just a sliver. I would just love to know everything, with each artist, what.
Well, Catherine will talk about her work when it's in San Diego.
Oh, that's right, San Diego, right. Yeah, but
Yeah,
there's 60
I
artists.
know. And that's the best part about art,
Yeah.
is hearing the stories in any show, anywhere.
Yeah.
Because you don't know. I mean, oftentimes you walk in and you see it at face value, but until you actually read the artist statement, or actually listen to what the artist has to say, that's where the most, that's why I think artist talks are so important. We did 3. We did, I met with Alexander Grant, Leslie Leibowitz, and then this, because I feel it's even more important than the opening sometimes, and telling the story and, the vision. Cool. Well, thank you all so very much for being here.